Teachings that do not speak of pain have no meaning, because humankind cannot gain anything without first giving something in return. Fullmetal Alchemist. That was the kind of opening passage to the first volume, and that first sort of message sets the tone for the entire series. I've just completed finishing the 27 volume series that is Fullmetal Alchemist, and I have to say it was amazing. It was absolutely brilliant. It's taken me quite some years to finally get around to reading Fullmetal Alchemist, but now that I have, I can definitely say it's a staple amongst shonen manga. So what is Fullmetal Alchemist for those of you who don't know? Fullmetal Alchemist is about two brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, two young alchemist boys who try to bring their departed mother, their dead mother, back to life using human transmutation, which is essentially a sin against God, a sin against the laws of alchemy. And in the process of trying to do that, they end up, basically crippling themselves. Edward loses his leg, and Alphonse loses his entire body. And in order to get Alphonse back, Edward has to sacrifice his arm, in order to get his brother back, but only ends up being able to get back his soul, which he basically merges with a suit of armor. So we have, the journey starts off with Ed, who has to get automale limbs, prosthetic limbs, to be able to move around, and Alphonse, who is actually his younger brother, but is a giant suit of armor. And basically, the story is about them trying to find an elixir, the Philosopher's Stone, which enables any user to amplify alchemical powers beyond normal limits, so they can get their original bodies back. And that's what sets it apart from different shonen manga. I think I've mentioned this before in a different video, unrelated to, a Fullmetal Alchemist, not actually a review, but what sets Fullmetal Alchemist apart from other shonen manga is the fact that the two main characters are on a journey to get to a particular goal, not like a positive goal, should I say. If I had to compare it to other shonen series that are, of the same caliber as Fullmetal Alchemist, like, One Piece or Naruto, or, any of them sort of big three. Luffy wants to become the Pirate King, he wants to become much better. Naruto wants to become Hokage, he wants to become much better. Whereas Ed and Al simply just want to get their original bodies back because they've committed the ultimate sin. And from the get-go, this is a series that is heavily character-driven. We're introduced to a world which is, sort of steampunkish, but, it's still quite technologically advanced in terms of its, alchemical prowess. We're introduced to a world where alchemy is, helped saved some parts of the world, but at the other end of the spectrum, alchemy also, completely damages people. The world that it's set in is, heavily scarred and damaged by, the exploitation of alchemy. We're introduced to companies that, function solely to provide prosthetic limbs to people because, there's been wars that, that have had alchemy used as the main weapon that have just completely destroyed countries and people. It's themes of genocide, murder, betrayal, corruption. It really is an all-round sort of package with Fullmetal Alchemist, and it drives home the point of not entering into the domain of God, because if you enter into the domain of God or truth, then you will get burned, you will be punished. Because we're introduced to many people who try and play God and end up, having to repent for that sin, because at the end of the day they're mere mortals, and they shouldn't be dabbling in forces they don't truly understand or can't truly manage. And that's what I loved about Fullmetal Alchemist. Throughout the various journeys and people that Ed and Alphonse meet, they kind of just like trudge through things, with heavy weights on their shoulders, because they fully understand, the sin that they've committed, and they simply just try to right all their wrongs. Um, so yeah, we're introduced to Ed and Al, who are trying to look for the Philosopher's Stone. But there's also an evil organization called the Homunculi, who also seem to have similar goals. You know, they want to use Philosopher's Stones for, you know, more sinister purposes. You know, there's a lot of interesting battles that go on between, you know, the Elric brothers and these, you know, mysterious homunculi who, you know, I won't really delve into who or what they are because, you know, I'll be treading in dangerous territory and I don't want to be punished by any people watching the video. But yeah, what can I say? I've also simultaneously, whilst reading this, I've been watching Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. You know, and that really holds up well to the story, you know, the original source material, because I haven't seen the original Fullmetal Alchemist anime, but I'm aware that it deviates from the original story because it was being aired at the same time that the manga was being published first in Japan. So, you know, there's loads of filler, and I think at one point the anime just kind of deviates from the source material altogether. Whereas Brotherhood, you know, strictly stays to the source material and keeps the story intact, which I really liked. But yeah, onto the, you know, more about the manga. So by Hiromu Arakawa, if you weren't aware. Another one. This is another series, one of my few series that have been penned by a female mangaka, and she's absolutely brilliant at telling a story. You know, it wasn't really riddled with plenty of shonen cliches. Ed and Alphonse, you know, they have a duty to, you know, care for those who they, you know, who they love, and, you know, protect those who, you know, are innocent. But, you know, that's not something that's, you know, too greatly, you know, I don't know, how could I say it? You know, that's not one of the main points. You know, that's not one of their defining sort of features. You know, one of their defining sort of character features, because they're simply just trying to get back what, you know, they lost. So, you know, sacrifices have to be made, and, you know, they're tough and rigid in that respect, and that's why I respect those two characters, because, you know, not everybody they can save, and, you know, there's times in the series where they have opportunities to save people, or, you know, they're unable to save people because they're, at the end of the day, they're simply human. They're not supernatural beings, or, you know, they're not gods. You know, they're just two young boys, and they're acutely aware of that fact. And that's why sometimes sacrifices have to be made, and that's why sometimes they can't save people who they love or they care about. And, you know, this really sort of this really distinguishes them as, you know, top tier characters, because it makes them really relatable in a sense, because, you know, you get a much sort of you know, more human sort of vibe from them. You know, there's a real human aura that surrounds them, whereas if you're reading, you know, like another shonen manga, and, you know, it's all about, oh, I'm going to protect everyone, and then they end up protecting everyone, you know, it kind of negates any sense of drama. But with Ed and Alphonse, you know, they try and save people, and, you know, they fail, and, you know, they try and learn from their failures, and just they just, you know, keep the head up, and, you know, kind of move forward from it. And, you know, it's really bittersweet in that sense. But, you know, that's just what made me enjoy it. You know, people do die in this series, and nobody is safe, because, you know, they're in a world completely obliterated by alchemy and the effects of alchemy. So yeah, I absolutely love this series. It's definitely my top 5 favourite shonen, probably my second below only One Piece. Yeah, what more to say? You know, obviously a lot of people have seen or read this series already. If I had to point out any flaws, because obviously this is a review, I have to criticise it in some way. The ending seemed quite rushed. I'm not going to say obviously what the ending was, but, you know, the sort of, I don't know, I just think it wasn't anticlimactic, but it was kind of convenient how it ended. You know, I expected like a major twist, but there wasn't. It was just, it ended how I'd predicted, which wasn't bad, but, you know, considering how you know, how surprised I was every time I read a volume of Fullmetal Alchemist, and, you know, learning something new about the story every time. You know, the last sort of 2 or 3 volumes for me just, you know, felt, oh, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, oh, I expected this to happen, and, you know, I felt satisfied at the ending, but, you know, I kind of wanted a little bit more from it. You know, it was just a convenient ending for me. But yeah, it was progressively good. You know, there was never any sort of downtime. You know, there was no slow pacing or anything in the story. You know, it had a lot of exposition, but, you know, it was well thought out exposition, and, you know, it made sense, you know, for the story that it is. There was no sort of unnecessary characters. Everybody played their own role, whether, you know, no matter how minor, because, you know, there's a lot of characters to think about in this story, and, you know, a lot of characters doing lots of different things in different places, but, you know, they all play a different role, and, you know, are crucial to the story. And, you know, that's one thing that's great, because it's, you know, the world building is really good, but the character building is also really good. You know, and everybody gets their own sort of, you know, little bit you know, of character development, no matter how minor they are, even if it's just like a mini story arc, which is kind of how it starts off. It starts off quite not necessarily episodic, but, you know, there are a few sort of mini story arcs, you know, in the sort of the first 2 or 3 volumes, but that's basically just to kind of build the main characters and set the foundation for what kind of series it is, and then it kind of like gets into the main story, like the main meat of the story. So yeah, you know, that's my review of Fullmetal Alchemist, the manga. You know, drop me, I don't know, your thoughts on, you know, this series in the comment section below. You know, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? You know, tell me, you know, what you think of my thoughts on this. You know, I'm aware it's been a while since I've done a manga review. I think my last manga review was a Bride Story, and the one before that was Apollo Song. So I need to get back on my manga reviewing game. But, you know, needless to say, you know, I might as well point out this video that I'm going to be doing Tezuka season soon, where I'm going to be reviewing all of the Tezuka manga I own, just basically talking about the mangaka in general. So stay tuned for that as and when I start in the next few weeks. Until then, ArchAngel Manga, signing out.